Don't look now. Don't look now. But yeah, we're back. We told you. We told you. We promised you. We promised you that we'd be back. Now, we will admit, in full disclosure, we didn't know who was going to come back with us, but we knew we'd be back. The Senator's here. Very striking pullover that he is wearing. First time appearance. We'll get into the pullover later. This is Three Guys Before the Game with our special guest besides the Senator. Senator calls us top five.
This is top five.
Top five.
Yes.
Yeah, we're giddy. We've been talking about this one for a long, long time. We are joined by Blaine Stewart, assistant receivers coach of the NFL Pittsburgh Steelers Football Club. He joins us, and he is a guy that we literally watched grow up before our eyes. And look what he has become. We're going to get into all of that and more. Three Guys Before the Game is brought to us by the Burdette Camping Center. They just happen to be the only RV warranty forever provider in the state of West Virginia, serving Mountaineer fans for over 40 years from every corner of the state. You can visit them by going to BurdetteCamping.com. That's BurdetteCamping.com. I would imagine we still have the Jordan McCabe special going on there, right?
Oh, it's still going.
364 points means $364 off when you spend $1,000 at Burdette Camping. We'll talk about that later. And Three Guys Before the Game is also brought to us by the Mountaineer Athletic Club's Time to Climb campaign. Time to Climb campaign. We'll get into that as well. Hope you all had a good weekend. Senator and I got some sun on Saturday. Watched a little football practice as well.
It was good.
Good weather. Good weather. Spring ball can be such yuck weather. I mean, I've been there before. Snow just like takes away. Sun, beautiful Saturday.
That's 2 for 2. Second week they've had it open.
Liked it a lot.
Big position change this weekend that we'll get into later.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was
a big
one. Yeah, it was a big position change. All right, let's get right into the meat of this thing. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the program Blaine Stewart. He is assistant receivers coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look at you, man. For those of you that watch this, some listen, most listen. Well, actually, more people watch than listen. But would you look at the setup he gave us?
Well, you got the big boy setup.
I mean,
this is the A+ setup here.
This is the setup where Coach Tomlin does all of his press conferences. He gave us the full background. Shout out PNC Bank. I mean, might as well give him a sponsor mention. Blaine, thanks so much for being with us. How are you?
Oh, man, I'm doing great, Tony. Thank you for having me. And Brad, too, man. It's great to catch up with you guys.
He looks pretty good in that black, doesn't he?
Looks perfect. Looks great. Looks like he belongs.
Yeah, it looks perfect.
Is this our first active NFL assistant on the program? We've had players before. First active NFL coach, I believe.
I'd say yes.
Yeah. Breaking new ground here.
Yeah, I'd say yeah. And we had Belichick 5 or 6 times, but I don't even know if that counts anymore. No, it doesn't count. No, it really doesn't count. So we're going to jump all over the place with Blaine. And as I said earlier on, we truly watched him grow up here in Morgantown and watched his career and obviously his association with WVU football. I was thinking this morning, Blaine, so when your mom and dad moved to Morgantown to join Don Nealon's staff, you would have been how old?
We moved here, I was 5. It was 2000, right before kindergarten. I moved like 2 kindergarten.
So did you redshirt kindergarten, or did mom and dad put you right in their regular class, or are you a redshirt kindergartner?
I was redshirted by 12 days. So September birthday, I didn't have a choice, but 12 days into kindergarten, I turned 6. So I'm basically redshirt. I could have been 7, so I took the last redshirt I could get.
That's awesome. Yeah, see, I didn't redshirt. September. So what day in September?
13.
Yeah, see, I'm 8th. I'm September 8th birthday, so I didn't. I think it really has stunted my development as an individual. I think it'd be a lot farther down the line, but obviously for you, it worked, and so that's a good. So you're 5 years old when you get here,
yep.
And your dad joins staff. What are your earliest recollections once you got around Mountaineer football? Because this will make Brad and I laugh now, because your first players that you remember would be who?
Corey Ivy, for sure. My first jersey was a number 8 jersey in 2000. Corey Ivy, Avon Coburn, Brad Lewis, when my dad was coaching quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that Music City Bowl year was my first year. And, remember that old AstroTurf and going to Nashville and that win. So yeah, it's crazy kind of how long it's been.
That was a super wild time. That's great. We all remember the Music City Bowl, how freezing cold it was that day. And Brad Lewis threw 700 touchdowns, and they're still trying to figure out how to guard Antonio Brown because they kept trying to play man the entire game. You should go back as a coach now. You should go back and watch that tape and go, like, why were you trying to play him man, straight up man?
Hey, that was a good game. I just remember if that thing was probably 5 minutes longer, Eli Manning was coming. So we had to – I'm glad that clock ran out when it did, and we got out of there with a win for Coach Nick.
Yeah, that's so true. So right there and then, as you said, your dad comes in toward the end of Coach Nealon, and then that Music City Bowl is Don Nealon's last game, and there was unbelievable question as to what was going to happen within the entire program when that game was over. And I've never thought more of a game of a team that was primed to get beat that day than that West Virginia team, because those assistants all thought they were going to be out of work, didn't know what was going to happen to the staff and the whole deal. And Rich had already been named, and Correct. He was there at the game. Do you have any recollections as far as thinking, like, am I here, not here, what's going to happen?
Yeah, definitely. As I grew up, just kind of talking and seeing it in the profession, when the new coach comes, a lot of times that means full new staff. But, yeah, we're just really fortunate that Coach Rodriguez extended that offer to stay, and we were really happy about it. But definitely some kind of in limbo during that bowl week, for sure.
Blaine Stewart is our guest.
Were you engaged at that point? So you were little teeny tiny at that point. Were you always locked in on sports and in football in general from the time you were that age when you first arrived here?
I would say so. Definitely not as engaged in like I guess obviously the wins and the losses, but kind of a couple years later when I was 7, 8, 9, going to practices and stuff, that's when it really, became really all I cared about. I didn't have a favorite pro team going up. I just had West Virginia football. That's really kind of was a huge, impact on my development, just kind of what I grew into.
So you see exactly how the sausage is made, and that is so different than actually looking at the sausage on Saturday when the sausage is finished. So you lived it. You knew, as we said, coaching change when you're young. Are you going to stay? Are you going to leave? Different styles of coaching. You're on the practice field. You see how those things go. Do you have a memory as to when you thought, I want to do this?
Well, when I was young and naive, I wanted to play for as long as I could.
Sure.
But as I grew into, 8th, 9th grader, that's kind of when I saw, like, I want to play as long as I can and ride that train as far as it'll go. But coaching definitely caught me from a young age, just being at practice and being around it and seeing, like you said, the amount of great coaches that came through West Virginia at that time. It truly kind of showed me a blueprint for what I wanted for myself. And those early teenage years was when I knew I wanted to get into it full time when I got the opportunity.
You mentioned your dad coaching quarterbacks there at first. Which former Mountaineer quarterback threw you the most passes as a little kid?
That's a tough one, but I got to say Rasheed Marshall, because, Rasheed was there for a long time. My dad coached him his whole career, I believe. And, we had a really good relationship, and I was trying to prove that I could hang. So I was trying to catch as many passes during routes as I could during practice.
Now, am I right that you thought that was that your spot? Were you going to be a QB, and then obviously you became a receiver? You went to JMU, you went to UC. Was quarterback first for you?
Yes, sir. And I tell people, they kind of laugh, but I broke my arm in 8th grade when we played Suncrest in one of the county playoff games, and it just never came back. I wanted to be a quarterback so bad, but I broke my arm, got a plate and 7 screws in there, and the next season it just never came back, and then I slowly transitioned to wide receiver.
So you tell Roethlisberger that perhaps your career would have been in the league. Would you ever tell Ben that?
No, I would never tell Ben that. But I'd like to think I would have made a little noise. But I was happy to do what I could at receiver, and it worked out for the best.
Wait a second. The game. Were you playing for Suncrest? Who were you playing for?
I was playing for Cheat Lake. We were playing Suncrest.
Yeah.
It was a Tuesday or Wednesday night in October, because we played It was the week we played Auburn at home in 2008.
Yeah.
So my dad had his radio show. I think he was on his way to the radio show and came back, I believe, when, I went out and had to go to the hospital and get in a cast that night. But yeah, that was 2008 Auburn week, because I remember I was at the game in a cast.
Oh, I forgot that one.
Yeah.
It stopped a career.
Chazzy Thomas tried to tackle him on the sideline, and I got him down, but I think he won that one.
Oh, I got you. So you were not quarterbacking. You were playing defense when the injury occurred.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah, went for a tackle on the sideline, got up, and it wasn't a good situation.
See, because I was right on the verge of I was going to criticize Suncrest for playing dirty. SEALs, they oftentimes will play dirty. I may have had razor blades underneath their, their gear, things like that, Brad.
I think that's an exaggeration. You're kidding. Tell people you're kidding right
Was
there.
Jamby the coach at Suncrest at that time?
I think he was. He was involved. He might have, kicked some dirt on me when I was down. I think it happened.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. See, we're breaking news. Yeah, breaking news. All right, so let's jump into a couple of different things here. So you grow. You're 5 when you get here. You mentioned you're playing middle school ball when your dad is the head coach. Let's even go back before that. One of the nights I'll never forget for the rest of my life is the night of the Fiesta Bowl and the victory. Obviously, the game. Before we even talk about the game itself, I've always also kind of fondly remembered the week and the weeks leading up to that game. So Rich leaves, your dad's named the interim head coach, and at that point, like I said about the Music City Bowl, it looked as though this is not going to be a good situation for the world champion Mountaineers. And yet, everything came together. What are your reflections and memories of the trip and then leading up to that game?
What you mentioned, kind of us against the world mentality. I just remember, everyone kind of rallying around each other. Offensive coaches, defensive coaches, families. We went out there and we kind of thought it would be our last hurrah together. So coaches' kids were enjoying the bowl week, and a lot of good seniors on that team. I mean, 2007, you'll never forget those names. So I just remember kind of rallying together and giving ourselves an opportunity to go out there and play and just see what happens. Because I think we were truly just playing with house money at that point. A big one.
Yeah, I agree with you. Totally agree. I thought your dad did an unbelievable job of getting the right people in front of the student athletes before West Virginia even left to go to Arizona. I remember Don Nealon came and gave you the us against the world, and Joe Manchin, who was governor at the time, came and gave the steel analogy, steel analogy, how the steel burns steel harder than steel. Did that, and I thought that was really good stuff.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt. I know you had to go out and execute. That game was won in the week leading up to that game. That's what your dad did, Blaine, for setting the tone for that team when it could have collapsed. I think that's a win before you even took the field against Oklahoma.
I agree with you. As you know, bowl situations, the team that wins oftentimes is the team that's got the better mental approach. And that was clearly the case.
Blaine, when you think back to that week, did you know it was different for your dad in the role? We were just showing on the video stream, there's some great pictures of you as a little guy, both on the stage after the game, but at some press conferences leading up. Did you know at that point, at that age, that your dad was in a different role, or was it still just you're just part of the team and you're having fun like you said?
No, I 100% knew it was different. I knew it was kind of an opportunity that came through a lot of years of hard work, and just to be at West Virginia, being a West Virginia guy, and having family throughout the state and everything. I knew it was kind of a huge opportunity, something that he had been working for his entire life, and you could feel that in the preparation and just kind of how it unfolded, and it was special, and you could kind of feel just a little bit different sense of urgency, not nervousness or anything, but just an extra focus and just determination from him, even though I think I was 13 at the time.
Were you in the locker room for Leave No Doubt?
No, I wasn't. No, I was only in the locker room after the game.
Okay.
We got to ask. So my over-under number, if you put the over-under number at 500 for the times I've watched that, you'd sail over. How many times have you watched that?
I would say over as well. You know, it's such a blessing that got captured, because I think I've told this story before. My dad didn't know that there was going to be a camera in there, and I'm not gonna lie, he wasn't very happy when it came out on YouTube a couple months later. He was kind of, you know, just thought that was an intimate moment between him and the guys, and it just kind of, I'm glad selfishly that it got captured, so I can go back and watch it whenever I need to. And, you know, it pops up here and there when you least expect it. So I'm truly glad, but I would definitely say over for me as well, just because that's always good to go back and reflect on.
So he was bummed out there was a camera in there to capture. That's typical of him, right? He wanted that with him and his team. I can hear what he would be saying, but it's amazing that that's become not a great keepsake for you, but that's one of the iconic moments in college football. That's not just a West Virginia thing. That is all-time college football.
Yeah. Had he ever used?
Yeah, but he got over it.
Had he ever used the expression to you of "leave no doubt" when he was talking to you about playing athletics?
No, sir. The first time I heard that was during the speech. So, you know, I mean, he might have heard it and Remember the Titans or something like that, but never verbalized.
Yeah.
How much of that was practiced versus him off the cuff? I mean, do you remember him walking around the house using any of those lines, or that was just him speaking from the heart?
He was a big note guy, so I'm sure it was written down somewhere, but no, I never caught him rehearsing or anything like that. I think once he got rolling, he just kind of went off the cuff.
No, I think you're exactly right. Once he got rolling, it was like
it seemed he was just rolling,
and he was rolling. I'll tell you what, man. You can't see these, but we're showing pictures of that week, and you're sitting there with him at press conferences out at the table, and he's hugging you on the field. I mean, he's not hugging you; he is squeezing you. And the way that you're looking at him, I mean, I'll be honest with you, man. That's hard for me to look at. I mean, it blows me up emotionally, man. It absolutely blows me up emotionally. He absolutely loved you, and I'm not talking about that 1 week. I mean, you were his guy, and that was awesome. That was absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
after the game,
thankful for. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, after the game, what's your recollection there? Because the thing had to just be an absolute whirlwind. Unbelievable game. Thrilled. Never mind the negotiations that went on to become head coach. Just after the game, emotions and memories of that.
The first thing that comes to mind was one of the Fiesta Bowl people before the game. We were up in our seats, and they were like, now, if somehow you guys happen to win this game, we'll come get you at the beginning of the fourth quarter and take you down. And we kind of looked at each other like, man, that was really disrespectful. But I think a lot of people had that mindset. Like, they said, if for whatever reason you guys are in this thing, we'll come get you. But I just remember being down on the field with a couple minutes left. And, you know, against Oklahoma, that game was never over because, I mean, they were one of the most talented teams in the country. But, you know, as the clock was winding down, we were over to the side, and I tried to beeline it out there when he went to shake Coach Stoops' hand and found him right after he did that around. So it was just a crazy emotional game. And then being up on stage and in the locker room, and, you know, I'm not sure what time that game ended, but people didn't go to bed at the hotel till about 3 or 4 in the morning that night. We were flying out till, you know, the next morning. So we were back at the hotel and just kind of soaking it all in. And then obviously, just he had some conversations and then let us know that what was about to happen. And the next morning it became reality.
Yeah, that was the same exact thing. I mean, I got back late to the room, and you hear a buzz, hey, it might be coming down. And then all of a sudden phone, hey, there's going to be a press conference tomorrow morning. And it was early because we had to get on the bus, as you said. And so it was like done. And then just in a matter of like moments, over with.
Do you remember the moment when your dad walked back into the room to talk to you and your mom about getting the job? What was that moment like?
Yeah, that was very special. You know, we were back in the room, and like I said, it was either really late or really early. I can't even remember.
It was both.
It was both.
It was both. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if we'd even gone to bed yet, but you know, it was one of those deals. He just said, "Yeah, we're gonna get this opportunity," and you know, there were some tears, and my mom was crying, and we were hugging each other, and just, you know, so thankful for the opportunity. You know, Mr. Passlong giving that opportunity, and the university and the entire state just kind of giving us that chance, and it was special, and I'll never forget that as long as I live.
So your dad takes over, and I've often said this, and I told him this, and I would tell your dad this. Rich had won 11, 11, and 11, and your dad won 9 and 9 and 9. And I said this last week during Sportsline. When Don Nealon won 9 and 9 and 9, it was time for a parade. He did that in his second, third, and fourth year because there had not been great success before that. Your dad came in almost an unwinnable position, in my opinion, because you either win 11 just to keep it going or you win 12 to do better. As a coach now, and you look back on it, give me your reflections from that time, because obviously you think about that and have thought about that in the past.
Yeah, like you said, Coach Rodriguez and that staff did such a great job, and it was kind of like a perfect storm of players. The conference, the Big East was rolling back in those days, so we're playing a lot of big games. I don't think the Big East gets enough credit, first and foremost. And then, to lose a guy like Steve Slayton and Owen Schmidt to the draft, and one of the top 3 defenses in school history in 2007, to a lot of those guys graduate. I have thought a lot about it, and it was tough because when people could consider 9 wins and, winning bowl games and going to prestigious bowl games somewhat of a failure, that's tough. And you look around college football, you're like, hey, man, we were doing so much right. It just felt that, the standard was so high, and there's nothing wrong with the high standard, but, it was tough. And then 3 years, 3 different quarterbacks, things like that. And then to get those guys rolling and have that 2010 defense, you'd like to win a couple more games. And I can see that now, being in it so long. And at 16 and 17 years old, I was like, man, kind of naive a little bit about how tough football is. So, it's been good to sit back and reflect. But, despite whatever happened, we have such great memories. And, we're so thankful for the state program, everybody associated with it, and especially just the players and coaches that were involved, because it was a fun year. Sure.
So your dad, they make this move, Blaine, and it impacted your dad obviously hugely. What are your memories? What are your reflections after he was no longer the coach? Bring us into mindset, because I'd love to get your take as to how you felt that he dealt with that.
First and foremost, I'll say that he put myself and my mom first. He's took a lot of strength, in my opinion, to stay in Morgantown and stay around, and he was humble about it and tried to go about things the right way. Yeah, I would just say he put us first, and it was one of those deals where he got to step back a little bit and reevaluate some things, and it was a blessing to spend some intimate time with him in a football season, and go on recruiting trips with me and things like that. And it was tough. I can't lie. It was very tough for him, and it showed me a lesson on humility and doing things for your family. That it was tough, I'm sure, and it was one of those deals that it taught me a lot of lessons in from that, and it'll be something I take with me for forever.
How was he on a recruiting visit with you on the other side of the table when the coach was trying to sell you guys? What was he like in those situations?
Yeah. It was great. We got to go to some good schools, and we went back to BMI where he was head coach and I was born, and that was really cool because there was a lot of people that had great conversation with him and some respect. And that would probably be the first time he made it back, but yeah, he was good. I think he just liked being a dad on those recruiting trips. He didn't try to do anything, too much, or just he sat back and took in the information and just kind of, I think, enjoyed being a part of the process.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your playing career. JMU, who continues to ascend into the football ranks, doing very well, and then the University of Charleston. It looks to us, you got your degree, you got a lot out of it. It's set your coaching career. Did it proceed the way that you thought it would?
To a point, yes. JMU was probably the best decision I ever made. I was fortunate enough to be a part of Coach Matthews' last recruiting class, and it's cliche, but you make lifelong friends and you're part of some really cool stuff. Coach Withers comes in second year and kind of flips the program on its head for a good way. Really started to build something special and was a part of some awesome stuff there. Winning the conference championship, having college game day, playing in some big games, making the playoffs twice. So, it was a blessing there. Like I said, Coach Withers came in with such a good program that, got out recruited a little bit. I'll be the first to tell you that. We had some good receivers still playing on Sundays that I played with. So, when he took the Texas State job, I was graduating early anyway. I wanted to go play. Coaching was right there whenever I got done. So, I was thankful for the opportunity to graduate early and reach out to Coach Kirk and, go to Charleston. And I was take football as far as I could academically. So finish a master's degree in 4.5 years, which was a goal of mine from the beginning. I was really thankful for that. And I got to go check that box of playing at Charleston and, having a good time with those guys and, being a part of some cool stuff there too. So it worked out, set myself up, like you said, and was really thankful. I have no regrets, and that's all I can have.
Yeah.
Multiple degrees. Don't sell him short on multiple degrees. I think you got an MBA, don't you there, Blaine, on top of the undergrad?
Yeah, and yes, sir. And, I had such a great professor like you, Mr. Brad, so I appreciate all of that. The wisdom down at Charleston. You and Jim Strawn, two guys.
Oh, I didn't realize that. So you were involved in his matriculation?
Well, I think he's just being nice. I spoke to the class once.
Oh.
That's it.
Well,
I didn't run him off. I mean, that's probably the best thing there.
Well, you took him out of the business world and you made him go into the football world is probably what you did. I don't want any part of that deal there. All right, so give us the fill-in now. Most people that know this stuff closely know the story that your dad gave Mike Tomlin his first coaching opportunity, and now you are with the Steelers as an assistant receivers coach. This will be year what coming up, Blaine?
This will be year 4. Just finished year 3, so on year 4. It's flying. I mean, I don't have to tell you guys that it's going quick, and I'm seeing that now.
So walk us through your role, because it's a little bit different than the college ranks as far as how coaching positions and assignments and responsibilities are. So walk us through what you're into.
First and foremost, work for the offensive coordinator, which is now Matt Canada. So really excited to be a part of his offense, diving into that full speed. But work for the offensive coordinator, receivers coach, basically all coaches on offense and things of that. A lot of film preparation, behind the scenes stuff, whether it be scouting opponents, self-scout, getting game plans ready, things like that. Work with Danny Smith, the special teams coordinator, help him in all 4 special teams phases. So, it's been really good to kind of soak up knowledge from a lot of different really experienced good coaches. But yeah, just kind of behind the scenes development and then getting a chance to, help out where I can, game plan and just development with the young receivers and helping guys on defense as well. It's been really good.
Yeah. So here's my perception. You tell me if it's the reality. Yes, it's football. Football is football. However, professional football is the calculus level of the game. When you look at the X's and the O's, I would imagine that you see what you're doing now and you see what you're into now and you see what it used to be at the collegiate level. It's a whole different world, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Coach T always says there's no difference in training tables in the NFL. They got just as good of a training table as we do. We play 16 games and all 16 teams can beat you any given day. It's cliche, but it's so true. The level of player and coach in the NFL, it's just a blessing to be around because it's so, like you said, calculated and skillful. And it's one of those things that you just got to kind of be a part of the season to just really appreciate how in-depth and complex it is. And it's been awesome to be a part of.
Give us a breakdown of it's a 2-part question. I need your daily schedule on an off-season, I put that in air quotes, like now, but you're preparing for the draft. Walk us through what the day looks like versus a day in season that's a Wednesday or Thursday of the regular season.
Yeah, because we're in it now. The off-season, it's kind of broken down into 2 parts. There's our personal football development, whether that be, off-season studies and things of that nature and just getting ready schematically. And it's also free agency and draft prep. So, we kind of break it up. Morning we'll spend doing one or the other. So, for example, just like draft meetings and evaluation and getting out on the road on pro days, just finding guys in the draft and things like that. Free agency also, just trying to, make the team better. And then also it can be broken down into just kind of an off-season study on what you want to do and trends around the league and things like that, watching other people and just evaluating yourself, which has been really good too. And that's why I'm so excited to be a part of Coach Canada's offense and, kind of just see where we can go with this thing. It's been really good to get in on the ground level with that and him, and I'm excited about that. And then, in season, it's still typical football, get in there in the morning, get ready for meetings, staff meeting, player meetings, get ready for walkthroughs and stuff, practice, and mix it in there, just trying to stay ahead of the, the kind of the legwork that I'm involved with, whether it be film breakdown or game plan installs or things of that nature, and just trying to, stay on top so we can be as efficient as possible.
What's your favorite part so far?
Just the interaction with the guys and coaches. It's a beautiful thing when you can kind of take people from all types of walks of life and backgrounds and join together for a common goal. And I would say 100% the best part is just being around guys and work towards something special daily. It's motivating and it's humbling and it's exciting to be a part of.
Hey, let's talk some X's and O's here. Where do you think the game is going evolution-wise? Because the NFL that you're into today is certainly different than the NFL you grew watching up. We were back in the typical big, tall, stud quarterback, straight drop back, 7 steps, rocket the ball all over the field. And now we're seeing mobility in the pocket. We're seeing, a college, some of the college things coming in the program. Where do you think this thing's heading?
I would 100% agree with that. The college game is matriculated its way to the NFL more and more every year. We're kind of getting away from those long West Coast play calls and kind of being more almost up tempo in the league is a trend that's kind of came along. And I just think the biggest thing is going to be continue to get athletes in space. Because, playmakers making plays is what football has been about from day one, but finding new ways to do that. And like you said, the QB mobility element of the game has been something that obviously we study a lot, but just to see kind of take that trend from the early 2000s, primarily being in college, and now it's everywhere in the NFL with these athletic quarterbacks. It's fun to be a part of and fun to kind of watch develop and look forward to being a part of it for years to come.
The number of coaches that you've been exposed to and been around really is staggering for somebody of your age. Not just head coaches, but just the volume of assistant coaches all the way through that you've been around. Do you find yourself gravitating to any of their certain styles? Are there anything you've pulled out that you cognizantly pulled something out from somebody that you use today?
I can't pinpoint one thing, but like you said, just the ability to kind of look at a map and see coaches that you have relationships with everywhere is really a blessing. And, it's been great to kind of continue to develop those relationships on my own now that I am in this business. But I'll always take things from Coach Drake, who passed away in 2019, just whether it be, thinking from a player's perspective or just how you go about your daily walk as a professional and a individual. I always think to him and lean on his quotes. I got his quotes in my notebook from a few years ago. So I'll always kind of default to him and just appreciative of that relationship and, just try to continue his legacy and make him proud as I go. I've been around so many great coaches and I can't pinpoint more than that.
Yeah. You mentioned that you're always given the opportunity this time of the year, especially to do professional development. And while football is football, potentially down the road, do you see yourself dilly-dallying around back to the college ranks, or do you see yourself, I love this NFL thing?
I would like to be around the best opportunity I could be around. Obviously my feet are here, so I'm trying to make the most of this opportunity and so thankful for it and don't want to go anywhere anytime soon. But I would be very open to either getting back to college or, staying in the professional game, but just kind of whatever happens, I think it'll be meant to be, just look forward to focusing on wherever my feet are at the time.
Mm-hmm. That was a good answer right there, wasn't it?
It was a perfect answer.
Coach's answer.
You don't shut down any opportunity.
No. Coach's answer.
Right.
Happy where I am, growing here, developing, but you always have opportunity.
Yeah, perfect. He already get it. He get it. You knew he'd get it.
I knew he got it.
He's been getting it since he was 16. He's been able to answer that question.
I get it. All right, let's do some game plan stuff. All right. This is not Steelers related. Not Steelers related. We're just playing, okay, this is what we're doing. We're playing a video game. You have a team, and I have a team. You're the offensive coordinator as the video player. Give me your first three favorite plays you're going to run. Despite down and distance, what do you like? What do you call it?
What kind of situation?
Let's go. Okay,
See, hold on. Here's the thing. Let's just stop. Stop right now. He already told you it's calculus, and you just gave him like kindergarten 2 + 2 math. You got to. I mean, he can't answer. He got to have more information.
Okay. The ball is on the -47. It's third down. It's third down and 4, and the ball's on the near side hash mark.
Score and time.
You're down.
No, we're good. We're good. I can work with that. We'll have to start in a 3 receivers to the same side formation with the tight backside, just to kind of get a little recognition of zone or man. If you put corners over, maybe get a little man-to-man look and call some type of man-to-man beater, maybe a pick route for your best receiver or something like that. And if you give a zone look, just try to get a good drop back concept that we practice all week and find a completion based on what you give us.
I love that.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, very good. I like that.
Yeah.
I like it. What were you looking?
Try to establish the.
Yeah. So if you're recruiting a quarterback, okay, who are your, and let's just say college quarterback. You're out there recruiting a high school kid, or nowadays a kid off the transfer portal. What are your absolutes that you must have from a quarterback to be on your team?
I think you got to have just the intangibles of a quarterback. The things that can't be measured, whether that be leadership skills or, just kind of a guy that you can put in your program that the guys will rally around. You gotta have, like we talked about earlier, QB mobility. You got to be able to stand in the pocket and be courageous. And like I said, just the intangibles that come with the position. Looking back, just finding guys like, Rasheed Marshall or a Pat White or Will Greer, guys like that. I mean, not to give the West Virginia homer answer, but find a guy with those intangibles that can make tough throws and kind of elevate a program. Those guys with depth, and then go from there.
Why was Pat White so good?
I think Pat White was before his time. Pat White's athletic ability was second to none. I mean, I think he checked all the on-field boxes, but the leadership characteristics and the belief that he could create in the building was something that maybe never will be touched again at West Virginia. I mean, not to discredit anyone past, present, or future, but the energy around the building when Pat White had the ball was something special. And I think just his obviously athletic ability and the guys around him made him so special.
Yes, that's an awesome answer, because that's what we talk about. 2 games going on at the same time, right? The mental game and the physical game. And if you don't have the ability to lead your guys and make them absolutely go to a higher level, then you're probably just going to be a guy. Just going to be a guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's hard to project. You're looking at 16, 17-year-old kids trying to get them to commit for 4 years. And it's special. And, teams that do a good job of that really set themselves up for, long-term success.
Yeah. Absolutely.
When you come to a college practice, not so much pro day, because I realize they're doing drills, what's the first thing you're looking for at a guy? Do you have to check the size box first before you move on to anything else?
You're just kind of looking at all things athletic ability, not even so much football related, but like you said, size, movement skills, things like that. And, just watching a guy, you can kind of tell pretty early just whether he's for his position, if he's got some elite characteristics. And we always talk about here in Pittsburgh, like, what's his distinguishing trait? Like, just because he's a wideout doesn't mean that you can put that in a box. Is he a size wideout that can kind of be big and strong, or is he an elite speed wideout that can kind of use that role to maximize his position in the offense? You just kind of you evaluate the straight athletic ability, because you don't know what's being coached and what's being installed to him. So you just kind of want to see, is that something you can work with in the future?
What's the vibe around the offices when it comes to these next couple weeks when the draft is coming? And last year was such an odd year in a lot of ways, but from just a football perspective, the draft was so different last year from how you had to prepare, how it was actually happening logistically. So as you push into this year, what's the vibe like? Is it excitement? Is it intense? Is it laid back? What's it like?
I would say optimistic. We're all 0-0 right now, so everyone's kind of on a clean slate. And yet, just obviously last year was so crazy for every industry. But doing a draft, I was in Morgantown at my mom's house, on a Zoom call. So it was truly something. We had coaches all over the country. Once we weren't working in the office, it was kind of go where you got to go, wherever your forever home is. We were on a Zoom and watching it, following along. But now to be back here and be around each other and just be able to, instead of get on a phone, walk down the hall and ask someone a question. It's just been a breath of fresh air to kind of be back and be fully charged, taking this thing on together.
Yeah.
So you'll be in the facility, I assume, on draft night this year. It'll be back to the way it was for all of you guys. You'll be all around the facility now.
Yes, sir. Still, following social distancing practices and things like that. But yeah, we will be back in the building together.
What's the biggest thing you think fans don't either realize or appreciate about the NFL and about the professional football game? What do you think the thing that would surprise them would be?
I just think the fine line of the caliber of player. We always say in Pittsburgh, there's a fine line between a Pro Bowler and a practice squad, whether a practice squad player, whether it's opportunity or right place, right time. But I promise you and people that every single one of these guys is an elite football player, or they wouldn't be here to begin with. So I just think the level of athlete and the margin for error being so small is something that it takes a while to truly grasp and appreciate.
Isn't that got to be true? Because we can go down the list of former Mountaineers that have just been elite production guys at the college level that either aren't on a pro roster or are buried on a pro roster. So I think that speaks, Blaine, to the eliteness of the guys you're talking about, that we've seen so many great ones come through here and not be able to have to translate that up to the next level.
Yes, sir. And obviously, it falls a lot to where you get drafted, when you get drafted, your opportunity, injuries, and things like that. But yeah, just to speak to your point, the line is so fine for errors, and it's on to the next business, and it's something that it's crazy just kind of how guys can have really, really, really good college careers and then not really pan out. There's no science to it. That's what makes it so special.
Did the business aspect of it when you first got involved kind of surprise you or take you aback of how business-like it is? Like one guy might be here today and he could very well be gone the next day?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that definitely, just caught me by surprise as a young, energetic, naive guy that, you're working with a guy for so long and then he gets hurt. There's an injury settlement and then you never see him again. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know if cutthroat's the right word, but it's very businesslike, and you kind of have to appreciate guys when you're with them, because you can get traded, you can get cut, you can get hurt. So many things can happen that it makes it a very unique situation.
All right, my man. This is good stuff. We appreciate it very much. So this is your first podcast, huh?
Yeah, first podcast. Really excited to spend it with two fine gentlemen such as yourselves.
We've had one of your boys on here a couple of times. Do you know a guy named Nathan Adrian by any chance?
Yes, I do. I think he's going to run for mayor over there in Ukraine or something. I heard he likes it a lot.
Yeah. Well, you know what? He is committed to come back and play on the Best Virginia TBT team. So he's maybe dual citizen or something like that.
But he's created some controversy. He seems to be going to your barber. He's shaved off the hair again. He's going with the Blaine Stewart buzz cut.
Hey man, Nathan's. You never know what kind of hairstyle you're going to get from my buddy Nate. It's always fun to, if you don't see him for a couple months, it could be anything.
How happy were you when you watched him play and saw the kind of career that he had?
I was so happy for Nate. Growing up, Nate and I, we always played on opposite teams. So I didn't like him because he was so dang good at sports growing up when he was playing for the Marilla Mustangs and travel basketball and all that good stuff. But, when I went to Morgantown High, he and I became really close friends just playing football and basketball together. So it was such a awesome, journey to follow for him. And I'm so proud of the way he was able to handle it, because it was such a, it was a great situation, but it was a tough situation. Being a hometown kid on elite basketball program in the country, against probably some of the toughest competition in the country. He held his own and, had a great career. And I was so proud of him. And I'm glad he's going to do his thing over in Europe. Look forward to following that for hopefully years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Blaine's hair. Blaine's got short hair, right? Mm-hmm. His dad would be totally good with that. I'm not sure if your dad would go with the beard. I'm not sure your dad would. I think there might be a call on that from Dad.
Yeah. I never saw him with more than probably 3 days.
Yeah.
He kept it high and tight.
Yes, he did. Let me just say this. He kept the economy going at the barbershop. I mean, he would get himself, he was there.
It was clockwork.
Clockwork.
Yeah.
Friday mornings, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir. I think he kept John Cavalier in business there for a while. If times were ever tough, my dad would just, spend some more time over there.
Yeah.
Even though my dad was too cheap to get coffee, he would go get some from John Cavalier. So he had to give him that much business.
Well, your dad knew that they had all the answers at John's barbershop. That's where all the answers were flowing. If you needed intel or reconnaissance information, you just go over to John.
Sure.
John had that information.
Right, just ask John. He'll tell you.
John had the information available. If John couldn't tell you, some of the guys sitting there would be able to tell you. That's how that works. All right, buddy. We're gonna let you get back to doing what you do. We certainly do appreciate the time greatly, and we wish you the absolute best. Say hi to your mom for us, and stay well.
I appreciate that, guys. You guys are the best, and thank you so much for having me on. It was it's great to reconnect, and I look forward to hopefully doing it again someday.
You got a deal. Thanks a bunch.
Thanks, Blaine.
All right, y'all have a good one.
All right, buddy. There he is, ladies and gentlemen, Blaine Stewart. Huh? God, they did not realize he was 5 when he got here.
How about that? What flies? We know it flies. I know, we know it flies.
And then looking at those pictures from the bowl game, he was so young.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh, it goes
Well, think how long ago that was now. I mean, that was a while ago. 07? That's 14 years ago.
See what it feels like last night.
Absolutely.
Feels like last night.
You mentioned that we were talking about the call where was it late or was it early? I mean, I can vividly remember it was 3 a.m. I got a call from my boss. Called me and said, "Hey, we're gonna name Bill Stewart as the head coach. Why don't you call over to the United guys and let them know before the press conference?" And I said, "Okay." I mean, he goes, "No, like now." I said, "I can't call him now. It's 3 a.m. He just called me. We were having a conversation like it was Tuesday at 11 a.m. and we were having a meeting. He goes, "Call him right. It's 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So Blaine's exactly right when he said it was late or early. He's right in that time frame.
It was like very few people operate at that time. They were very, very late. It was kind of like the end of the Cactus Bowl, right? The game, like, what time is it in Morgantown? It's 6:30 in Morgantown now, but it's 3:30 here. So just kind of go with it.
Classic.
All right, couple of notes. First off, as I said early, we watched a little spring ball. What was your takeaway from spring drills on Saturday?
Well, I think the big thing was position change. Right, we've talked about the receiver. Been on Sportsline with us before. DeVell Washington, the receiver out of Michigan, moved over to the linebacker spot. That's not a switch you see very often from receiver to linebacker. So that was kind of interesting to watch him in some of those drills and in some of the setups, just to see. You could tell he was just trying to get his bearings on where he was supposed to be. But that's an interesting lineup change there. I think that tells you a couple things. One, they feel pretty good about depth at receiver. Right, and we've talked about that. There's a number of guys whose names you've heard at receiver. And then, two, it's been a position of need. Greg's discussed that a bunch. They need some more linebacker bodies. So they're looking at DeVell Washington, who played some safety in high school, athletic, and see if they can plug him in and get some depth there at linebacker. So to me, that's what jumped out from the practice.
I think it worked. I mean, late in the scrimmage, he showed that he could be a linebacker and a receiver as he picked one off and went about 75 yards down the field.
That'll work. Make a splash in your first practice there at linebacker.
I will not be one of those linebackers who they say, that's the reason why he's playing linebacker, because it hit him in the hands and he dropped it. He won't be that guy. Like, throw me the ball. And we can get into that. Practice continuing. So where are we? We're 2 weeks away. A week from this Saturday will be the spring game, and we'll see how that all comes together, and we'll have coverage of that as time goes on. Hey, as I said earlier, on Burdette Camping, our sponsor, as a final thank you to Jordan McCabe. He scored 364 career points at West Virginia, and Burdette Camping is giving you $1 for every point. Go to Burdette Camping, sales, parts, service, whatever it is that you purchase. If you spend $1,000, they'll give you 364 off by just going to Burdette Camping, and that's Winfield, and it is BurdetteCamping.com. That's a heck of a deal.
It's a great deal.
That's a great deal.
That's what they do, though. They give you great deals.
As you
They just
say,
show up each week and give you great deals.
well, when you call that now, back in your sports marketing days, you call that activity, or what do you say?
Activation?
Activation. Yeah. Now just explain that to us.
Well, they're activating the sponsorship. There are some sponsors that would just give you their money and you put their ad up or their sign up or their radio commercial or their game program ad.
Never hear it.
And never hear it from again. And that was fine because that helps sometimes to have some like that. There are others who take that sponsorship and say, okay, what can I do with the sponsorship to make it even better? How do I activate that sponsorship? Phil, and the Burdette Camping folks, very active in activating their sponsorship.
Yeah. Speaking of activation, the Mountaineer Athletic Club, which is a sponsor of this program, and its Time to Climb program. If you don't know about Time to Climb, I'll give it to you in a nutshell. Time to Climb is a program which asks you to become involved with WVU athletics. Why? Well, obviously, money is the key source of keeping the program going, and WVU is the last school among the Big 12 schools, 10 out of 10, as far as the number of people that donate to the athletic department. So they've created Time to Climb, which asks for $21 a month, $252 a year to join. You join, you get a bunch of different benefits by doing that, opportunity for prize drawings and things like that. To learn more, visit WVU-time, the number 2, climb.com. That's WVU-time, the number 2, climb.com. And it is the Mountaineer Athletic Club. When you're on the site as well, you'll be able to see the audio story of WVU Hall of Famer Mike Gansey called Driveway Dreamer. It's part of the Time to Climb program. So do check it out. Question, Sean in Washington State. We need to make it
Washington State?
Yeah, we need to make it out there. We do. I think it's Washington State. I mean, he just says Sean from WA. That'd be Washington State.
Sure, yeah.
He'd probably say like D.C. Metro if it was the other Washington.
Or if it was
Not
Washington, PA. Little Washington, as some refer to it as.
Little Washington.
Sure.
Yeah, it's not neither of those. The way to fix college football's lack of competitiveness is to have a salary cap. The Power Five should professionalize football programs and pull them away from the NCAA. This would result in a reduction of rosters, distributing talent further. The possibilities are tantalizing. Sincerely. This is one of my favorite topics. This whole, how's this thing going to look in the future when the decision comes down from the Supreme Court and then the name, image, likeness comes down. Talked to someone last week, and they said, this is a person wired in. They said, when it all happens, it's not going to be this massive, unbelievable change that a lot of people think that it's going to be. They said, do you remember when name, image, or when full cost of attendance came through? Let's kind of do a little history on this. If you'll remember, when full cost of attendance came through, there were those that were frightened by it that said there would be certain schools who have a lot of money that would make their full cost of attendance more valuable to a potential recruit than another school could. And as a result, the schools with the money that made the best deal would get the better players. Well, that really never happened. That never materialized. So if you jump now into name, image, and likeness, there is a concern that, for example, and this is the person I was talking to who gave me this, let's just say you got a big oil company, hypothetically Texas, okay? And they say, you know what we're going to do? We're going to spend $300,000 a year in our marketing budget, and we're going to allocate that to student athletes at hometown U. Let's just say hypothetically Texas. I got $300,000. I'm going to spend $300,000 a year on Texas football players. And I'm going to give that money to them. They don't think there needs to be rules, they say, so that cannot happen. Otherwise, you got a totally unfair playing field.
How's that different than what you have now? How's that different than you have now? You have rules now that say you can't pay players. Are people paying players? I just think
more in basketball than football.
Well, you think. I mean, it's more publicized in basketball. Let me ask you this. Which brings in more money, football or basketball?
Football.
By how much?
Not even close.
So we think they're not paying for football players?
They do it
for something that makes X times the amount that basketball is. We think that people aren't paying illegally for football players in a sport that makes 10 or 20 times what the basketball people make. You think that football's just going to do it by the book. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to do it. It's just those damn basketball guys over there paying the number 96 guy in the top 100, but football's not.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but there was a anonymous study among, I think The Athletic may have done a story, and Big 12 assistant coaches were asked, who's cheating in the Big 12? And they said, we're not having problems with it. Like other schools getting upset at other schools for buying guys straight out. So you make a great point. You make a great story. I'm wondering sometimes if basketball, because there's so few guys that you need, maybe, I don't know. And there's so many hands out in basketball, handlers and entourages of kids and people and handlers. And my perception, and I could be the most naive guy in the world, my perception is that the basketball cheating far outweighs the football.
So I'll say this on the name, image, and likeness, and same thing I've said since the very beginning. I think it's way overblown what people think is going to happen, and I think it's way overblown the number of athletes that are going to make a bunch of money off NIL. It's just not going to happen. You always have to remember transactional business is a two-way street. So you may want the money for your athletes. The athletes may want the money, but someone's got to give you the dollars. Go talk to anybody that's trying to sell advertising in this market right now. Is it easy? No. It's not going to be hundreds of players lining up with these big, huge deals. It's just not going to be that. There are going to be a few, and there's going to be some, but it is not going to be the big rush with money just flying all over the streets all of a sudden. It's just not going to be that. I think it's extremely overstated what people think is going to happen when NIL is allowed. And
I think something that may surprise folks as well is the high percentage are female athletes. Female athletes. There are studies out there, and you can find them pretty easy. Okay, it's doing the projection. Okay, if this were in existence right now, who would be making the money?
Yeah, but all those projections, here you got to keep this in mind too. So many of those projections are based off their social media following.
Right.
Okay, so is the NCAA going to be progressive in how they allow sponsorships to take place? Can the gymnast that has hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram, can she monetize that right away? Can she monetize that right away, or is it going to have to be set back in time when the only way she can monetize it to stand up and be in a commercial for the local retailer?
Oh, no, I think that's going to be part of it.
Well, that's a big question mark.
Yeah.
That's a big question mark. Can companies get involved in the social media and how quickly? Remember, NCAA and progressive aren't two things you normally use together.
Understood, but obviously the rules, the legislation that states are passing, and then eventually we may have a federal rule. I guarantee you that social will be involved.
You would think it would have to be.
It's going to have to be.
Right.
It will. That's your name. That's your image. That's your likeness. It's going to play.
Really, a lot of things with NCAA rules get slam dunked and rubber stamped that what should happen actually happens.
No, I think that the swell of movement on this thing, it will.
Okay, so then now move to the next thing. The gymnast was hundreds of thousands of followers that brand X out there that runs a branding school recommends that they're going to make $3.2 million per year because of their Instagram followers.
Those numbers are
Who's
off.
paying the $3.2 million?
Right.
That's what I'm saying. The numbers, I think, are so incredibly overblown for what they're actually going to return to people. That's the part that I think gets way overstated.
Yeah.
Way overstated.
Okay, so which leads to the discussion. Let's just do this. It leads this to the discussion. So who's not going to make money? Well, let's go back and talk about Pat White, Owen Schmidt, Steve Slayton, back when those guys are running around. Okay?
Okay.
Those guys all would have been in a great position to cash in. But maybe 95% of their teammates would not. Fair?
Yeah, probably more.
100 guys, 120 guys on the team if you count the walk-ons, and probably 5 to 8 guys are who sponsors want.
Well, yeah, that's a big number, 5 to 8.
Okay.
And the dollar, I think here's the other thing. The dollar amount that each of those 5 or 6 would get, again, whatever you think it is, you're going to overstate it.
Okay, what do you think Pat White, if Pat White was Pat White today at West Virginia and name, image, likeness is full go, what do you think he makes?
If he was making a couple $100,000 a year, that would be unbelievable.
I agree with you.
That would be unbelievable. And Pat was about as big a rock star as you can possibly have in the college environment.
But just think about this. Let's take a quarter of that, 200. Let's say he made 50 grand a year. It's a hell of a deal.
Well, sure.
Right?
I mean, here's the point. If it's 10, it's something else. It's more than what they're making. Because you're at zero. You're at zero in terms of extra outside income. So anything more than zero is good. But, I still have a lot of questions about this. When you get into the point, if it's going to be autograph sessions or camps that these guys are making, I think there's some run-up in there. Just straight, you know how hard this is to do a commercial? You're going to put a couple athletes on there and say, hey, be our spokesperson. You know how bad some spokespeople are? You hear it all the time. Being a spokesperson's not easy.
They don't do a good job?
No, they don't do a good job. So you're not going to just roll out athlete after athlete after athlete and suddenly see all these commercials out there with these student athletes. It's got to be our brand's going to pay to partner up on social. I think that's a good avenue. Are we going to eventually get to the point, can I Venmo a student athlete some money because I like their performance? You're going to not allow that.
I never got. That's frightening.
Is it a free market or is it not a free market?
Pat White goes out there and scores 4 touchdowns and West Virginia wins a big game, and you get some donors after the game in the tailgate, and they said, you get this Venmo right here. You could send Pat White. You could send him 1,000. Send him that. Boom, boom, boom. Holy hell.
What would John Pennington have made after his catch? A guy like that wouldn't necessarily be the $200,000 a year guy, but could make some nice scratch there on the night. Now, I'm sure that's when the NCAA is going to say, no, you can't
do that.
Can't do that directly.
Okay, here's a question for you. Let's just jump through a bunch of hoops and say Pat White made $50,000. Would he have a problem? Would teammates bemoan the fact that Pat made 50 and they got
maybe. I mean, does it happen in the NFL?
Yeah.
Yeah, but do they figure out how to play together?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, see, I agree with you. I mean,
do you think people in the West Virginia locker room back at that time knew Pat White was the best player, or were they surprised by that? So if you heard Pat White was making an extra 50, is the backup offensive guard, this sucks. This is unfair. Why is Pat White getting all of that? I think people in the locker room kind of know who's who, don't they?
You think the third string left tackle shouldn't raise a concern that Pat was making 50? Yeah, to me, that's fascinating stuff. I want to see how it plays out. But I think that's where the route we're heading.
That's probably overstated, too. People that are concerned this shatters the locker room environment, I think that's probably overstated.
Yeah. Because my answer to that would be, okay, yes, this is based upon popularity. It's based upon productivity. You have a higher chance of making money. However, you are still receiving a free opportunity for education. So if you're not contributing necessarily to, huge numbers and things like that, you're still getting compensated.
And that's why it's hard, and I've said this since the day I started on this side of the table from the other side. That's why I've said from day one, philosophy's easy to get agreement on. The execution of these things is really, really difficult. There's not a one-size-fits-all. That's why it's so hard to get to legislation here that fits everybody. There's not one size fits all in a football or basketball locker room, let alone when you bring in gymnastics and women's basketball and women's soccer. It is really hard. And I'm not sticking up for the NCAA, God knows. It's really hard to get to a one size fit all piece of legislation that covers all of this. Mm-hmm. You're trying to move the ball down the field and make it better than what it is now, but you're not going to get to a perfect solution.
And what's interesting is that the California law goes into effect in July when their new laws become effective. So what happens in California starting in July? Do the schools in California go, we have a state law. We can do this, name, image, likeness, which would run counter to what the NCAA is doing.
I can't imagine it gets to that point.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. Chris, thanks for that question. That was Sean out in Washington State.
Thanks, Sean.
Not Little Washington. This is Chris in Nashville. Listening to my news briefing on my Amazon Alexa device, there was a mention of Joe Manchin appearing on Hoppy Kercheval's talk show. I was very disappointed that the ABC News correspondent did not refer to it by its proper name, a coffee clatch. Totally agree with you, Chris, and this is the kind of thing we're trying to ramp out society. Also, do you think Deuce should take the same path as Javon Carter, staying through his senior year before going to the NBA, or Is he already ahead of Javon at this point in his college career?
In terms of where he sits in mock drafts, he's ahead of pace for where Javon was. I mean, if you remember, Javon absolutely had a monster junior and senior year, the two-time Defensive Player of the Year. Where Deuce sits right now, if he's in 40 as the floor, and you've seen him higher than that in some places, I think Deuce is at a higher point at this point in his career than Javon was.
Deuce McBride will never see senior year at West Virginia.
No.
Not even close. Here he is as a sophomore testing waters. 3 guys, Josh in Morgantown. Based on nicknames alone, who would you rather have lining up at quarterback? Goose Crowder or Scopes Caridi? I think the answer is kind of apparent. All right? You would have a guy named Scopes who would be a marksman hitting you hitting the bullseye, wouldn't you? I would think.
Except that your nickname was kind of given at the opposite end of that spectrum. I mean, sometimes you get nicknames that fit because you do something that warrants the nickname. Other times you get nicknames more as in jest.
Well, we'll find out, won't we? Weekend of April 24, 25, won't we? We'll find out. Maybe that's Scopes.
How many practice rounds will you get in? How many shots will you get up before you go actually fire? Because your first shot through a scope will not be trying to hit a live animal. I've got you practicing on the side.
I don't think that's for public information right now.
So
Next question.
Mm-hmm.
Next question.
Yeah, you're out there trying to practice.
Nelson writes, I'm sitting here. This is an old text. It's kind of like wine. It's dated with text. I'm sitting here watching the national championship. Don't know why the Mountaineers can't get it done. The last 2 championships have had 2 Big 12 teams. The program's historically not as good as West Virginia. Tech was a 3 away from winning it all, and barring a total collapse, Baylor is going to win. So what do we have to do to get over the hump? P.S. This text is at 12 minutes to go in the second half. Baylor up 14.
It held.
It held, but yeah, Nelson, it stuck there. So what do you have to do to win it? Well, I think you've established the point that you're in a neighborhood where you can get it done with both Texas Tech and Baylor getting to the Final Four, getting to the championship game. So you're in the right world. It's not like you're in a league that you'll never have a chance to do it. So that's one good sign. You've had advancement over the years, 11 years ago to the 4. You've had, obviously, Elite 8s that we've been to in the last, 20 years plus. So you're nibbling and you're sniffing. What do you have to do to get over the hump? Well, you got to have some pros that are going to play in the NBA. And we've had that, but you got to just, there's no recipe, man. You got to be playing your best basketball at the absolute right time of the year. Baylor was, and they won the thing.
The success matrix is really a difficult one, isn't it? With the talent first off, the avoiding injuries, the timing of it, the matchups, and then the execution. It really is. It really is amazing what you have to do to get the win, to win all the way through. Yeah. It's darn near impossible if you start to lay it out and put it together.
Yeah, so it's a good point. If you were to ask Scott Drew today, Scott, okay, you've been at it now for 20-plus years. What is it that separated this team from past teams? And it's so small of a line. It's just everything has to fall right for you. Everything.
I mean, Baylor in particular, multiple of those guys could have left, right, last year. And last year was a weird year. There was no tournament. There were some that thought, who thought they lost their chance last year?
Yep.
Right? They get those guys back. I mean, that right there changes it. The COVID hitting them could have potentially thrown them off course.
Helped them.
It did. Shockingly, it did.
Why did it help them? Because they didn't play, and they got together, and they said, okay, we've got some time here. Defensively, we got to get back to where we were.
Yes, they did.
Right? And so they had they had these OTAs late in the season. Okay, this is what we got to do. We got to get better. We got to get our defense back. had the opportunity. They got their defense back.
And then the flip side is take Gonzaga.
I was just thinking.
You talk about a program that has been right there. They have done everything you could possibly do. They're now a blue blood. I mean, they're a new blue blood. I know that goes against the definition of the term blue blood. But you can't have anything more than what they have, right? They did everything they needed to. Multiple pros were playing well, and they ran into an absolute buzzsaw 1 game away from it.
Yep.
1 game away.
Absolutely. That's a great
point.
point.
Gonzaga's sitting out there going,
what do you
talk
have to
about
do?
Getting over the hump. What do we have to do? What possibly do we have to do to get over this hump if you're Gonzaga?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You got Suggs. You got Kispert. You got Timmy.
You got 3 All-Americans.
You got IE, right? So you have everything positioned perfectly. Everything is perfect, and you can't get it done.
Because you hit a really good team, maybe the only other team that could have beat them like that, on a night when that team was completely engaged.
Exactly right.
That's the matrix I'm talking about.
Exactly
To get that thing to line up for you is really hard.
Yep. Absolutely. Gonzaga probably didn't need an overtime game in the national semifinals to set itself up for where it needed to be. If Baylor got pushed and had to go to overtime in its national semifinal, do they come in dragging just a hair and Gonzaga's perfectly lined up and ready to go?
Maybe. That's part of the tournament.
Is Baylor using the fuel from getting knocked out by Gonzaga 2 NCAA tournaments ago in the second round? Did that propel those guys that were there? And there weren't that many, but there were still some that were there. Did that give them the extra fuel to come out in the beginning of the game and just hit them in the face with haymakers that they were never able to bounce back from?
Or was Baylor just simply a better team?
Yep. These aren't NBA playoffs. These aren't series. These are 40-minute games, or 45, or 50 if you go double. But it's a one-night thing. It's a one-shot deal. That's also what makes it so hard. That's what makes it so hard. You know, and that's the magic of this thing. That's why there's such great excitement and ramp up in anticipation. When you get one of these games, it's one and done. And that adds to it, but makes it even more difficult on the other side. All right. This has been good.
That was a full episode.
Yeah, it was quite nice. We got to, while we were sitting here, well, I'll talk to you about that later. We forgot to do something, but we'll take care of it. We'll amend it in our next program. Remember?
Just now, which doesn't do us any good an hour and a half into
Me
this.
too. When it was, Okay, because we were on a little bit of a fluid schedule.
Yeah.
So we'll fix it. We'll get it taken care of. You guys have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about, probably because I don't either. We'll be back sometime next week. Our interview series continues. We'll be back with someone else. Special thank you to Blaine Stewart for joining us, for our producer, engineer, technician, researcher, Jonathan Taylor Kennedy III. For the Senator, Brad Howe. We're out. 3 guys before the game over and concluded.